Thanks.
Increase your energy costs. Insulating and
Okay.
encapsulating your cross
I should be
is a
live.
effective and worthwhile way to
And
Okay, give me
Pastor,
one
we need
sec.
to hear
over 40
you
years, Chicagoland
so we
homeowners
can make
have trusted
sure
Permaseal to make their home healthier
that
and
you
more
can be
valuable.
heard when
So
you come
call
up.
today and take advantage of our 20% off any new estimates for crawl space encapsulation with PermFoam. That's
Pastor?
800-421-7325 or visit Permaseal.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. We just need to hear you speak.
Check
Okay.
up on health.
Dr. Marshall Hatch
Dr.
here.
Thomas Tolovich from
Very
Purdue
good.
University
All right, I can hear him on Facebook.
Okay,
examined
great.
brain
Great, great, great,
injuries
great.
to high school football players who did not
Great,
receive
great,
a
great.
concussion.
Great.
He found
Great.
that top players received an average of
Okay.
1,800
Alrighty. I'm
major
going to be running
impacts
some
to
things.
the
What time are we
head
going to
in a
come up?
season, and that many of them
We were coming up at 6:08:45, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
The blows to the head that these
You're welcome.
were during matches as opposed to games. In the NFL, players do not have contact in every single.
Okay. I can hear something in the background.
Prior to their games, simply reducing some of that practice contact is very likely to have a significant effect on the total number of players take,
Okay.
and very possibly could reduce this type of impairment.
with Checkup on Health. I'm Chris Whitting.
WCPT 20, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Anthony Lajewicz, and this is Climate Connections.
Okay.
Sell by, use by, best before. Lots of phrases appear on food labels, and it's often unclear what they mean.
That's the dates of food.
Dana Gunders directs Refit, a nonprofit dedicated to reducing food waste. Companies actually use date labels to indicate when a product is at its very best.
They're really trying to guarantee their brand is at quality when it's freshest, but not that if you eat the product after that date, you'll get sick or it's going to go bad.
She says this misunderstanding leads to a lot of waste, which costs money and contributes to it means more food is grown, transported, and refrigerated than needed, which creates carbon pollution. And when food rots in a landfill, it releases methane, a potent global warming gas. So Gunder's group is pushing for passage of a federal bill to regulate date labels, to establish one standard phrase to indicate when food is at its highest, not to identify the day after which safety is achieved. She says making this distinction clear to prevent confusion and help limit global water pollution. Climate Connections is produced by the Yale Center for Environmental Communication. Hear more stories like this.
When the pastor comes up, would you put me on mute
Oh, for
for
sure.
like the first minute?
Another
Okay.
school. There's one every 20 seconds. If we do nothing, 3.5 to go over the next 4 years. But there is someone who can change that. You. United Way knows that kids who
Just so that I can get a couple of these pieces down.
Psych, tutor, mentor, volunteer to read with children. And the difference between a dropout and a graduate could be you. Take the pledge to volunteer now at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
All right, 60 seconds.
Thank you so much.
A boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of finding someone to invest in his vision? 1 in 4.5 million. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Early diagnosis
Thank you.
can make a lifetime
Oh,
difference.
let the words of our mouths and the
Brought to you by
meditations of our
Autism
hearts be
Speaks
acceptable
and
in
the
thy
Ad
sight,
Council.
O Lord, our strength and our redeemer.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am here.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Hope that you are rested well and almost ready for Christmas. Where did 2022 go, everybody? I'd just like to know. Get a little bit of feedback, Devin. Going to work that out. So glad to be with you today on December 12th, 2022, as we talk about Kirsten Sinema. That news broke on Friday just before we got off air. What will her defection from the Democratic Party, what will that mean? It means that she won't have to worry about the primary. First of all, remember that. This was all a political calculation. Apparently, this had been in the works for quite some time. She had not wanted to make this announcement in the primary cycle, which was, of course, not finished until last Tuesday when Raphael Warnock won his seat, won re-election to his seat as one of the 2 U.S. senators from the great state of Georgia. But so she, as an independent, because she's not a registered Democrat anymore, she won't have to face a Democratic challenger. But what will this mean? What will this mean for this tenuous power balance in the U.S. Senate? What will this mean? Where will she caucus? She's voted with Democrats, to be fair, most of the time, particularly when it came to the judiciary, the federal judiciary appointments, which are a real big concern for all of us. But we don't know where she's going to be. She's not a maverick as much as she is almost a loose cannon. You let me know what you think. 773-763. 9278 773 763 WCPT. I want to know what your thoughts are on Kirsten Sinema. And there is the notion that the former U.S. attorney who President Trump fired, Mr. Barrara, says that he believes that the Department of Justice is on a path to charge President Trump. And I want to know from you, will that make a difference? Will that promote healing? Is that what Americans are looking for? Because the fact is, the polls are showing that there's little enthusiasm about President Biden and former President Trump running for re-election, particularly President Biden. Now, people keep talking about President Trump having lost all of this momentum and all of this influence and all these seats. That's not true. I went to Ballotpedia and I brought the numbers to you. He has won almost 90% of his seats. What Republicans have done is they have not focused on federal government as much as they have focused on state governments. That is the tenuous agreement, the balance that the founding fathers created. You know, just states' rights versus federalism. I mean, that's the rub. That's the Civil War. That's all of that. And so I want to know from you what you think. What do you think? Because I mean, he won on state levels. The infrastructure to contest these elections exist on the state level. Indeed, that's where the presidential elections are decided. The states give you the electors who then go to the Electoral College and give you the president. That doesn't happen in Washington, everybody. So let's think about that. So in the meantime, let's get right to it. I cannot wait to hear from you today. What would charging former President Trump do? And why is there, I mean, who do you want to see run for president? Let's not talk about what you don't want. Let's talk about who you want to see do this. Call me, 773-763-9278. And would charging President Trump, would it heal the country? Remember, Senator Warnock didn't win in a landslide. It was not a squeaker, but he won by about 100,000 votes. It's a win. I'll take it. But let's be very clear. These are not landslide wins that the Democrats are having. The Republicans and the Democrats are in contention with each other, and it's serious. So 773-763-9278. Here's some of the headlines. In Chicago, there will be a high of 40 degrees. It will drizzle out there. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 35 degrees and cloudy. Did I tell you that I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota? All right, all right, all right. In the NFL, the Bears were off, thankfully. Oh my gosh, they've been breaking my heart. They were off yesterday. They'll be back on the 18th. But the Lions took down the Vikings 34-23. In the NBA, the Hawks, well, they a heartbreaker over the Bulls, 123-122. And the Timberwolves will take on the Trail Blazers tonight. In the NHL, the Oilers will be facing off against the Wild, the FIFA, the World Cup in soccer. Quarterfinals tomorrow. I cannot wait. The first African team in the history of the World Cup made the quarterfinals. And that, of course, is Morocco. And so people in the Arab and African worlds are rejoicing. They're very, very excited. But, it's very interesting because so many of these African and Arab players are populating these teams in Europe. So, hey, I love it. I love it. I love it, everybody. And then, of course, we pray for the family of Grant Wall, brilliant sports journalist who exposed a lot of the corruption in FIFA. And he also helped us to see what was happening to the migrant workers who have been building in Qatar in advance of the World Cup. And 49 years of age, died suddenly, and there is still no cause of death. Oh, wow. God bless them all. God bless them all. God bless his family, his wife, and his family. God bless them. More than 15 million people in 14 states are under winter weather alerts as a multi-day severe storm begins today for parts of the South and southern central U.S. The storm system already slammed into the western U.S. over the weekend, causing avalanche warnings and closing major highways. Meteorologists say the storm will strengthen as it heads east our way on Tuesday, likely impacting a large swath of the lower Mississippi River Valley. Areas in Louisiana and Mississippi could see tornadoes. The historic Artemis mission came to a momentous end on Sunday as NASA's Orion spacecraft made a successful splashdown in the Pacific Ocean off of Mexico's Baja California peninsula. The mission sent the uncrewed spacecraft, that is unmanned spacecrafts, human beings were not aboard, on a trip around the moon for a little over 25 days to test whether its capsule could make a safe re-entry to Earth. Now that it has cleared that hurdle, NASA is looking to choose a crew of astronauts to fly the Artemis 2 mission, which could take off as soon as 2024. Yay, 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 yay. It looks like we are on our way back to the moon. Amid freezing temperatures, Ukraine is working to patch up sections of its power grid faster than Russian missiles can knock them out. Quote, the enemy is hitting most important facilities and key elements of substations that ensure the output and transmission of electricity. Such is war, everybody. That's the tragedy of war. Wow. So those are some of the headlines, but I came across this one, Pastor. And this is something that's very disturbing. I think this is helping to drive a lot of the social unrest in the United States, which the head of our security agency said more than 10 years ago. Household wealth in the United States is down by $13.5 trillion. It's the second worst dip on record in the United States. American households lost about $6.8 trillion in wealth over the first 3 quarters of 2022 alone, everybody. That's right. People are hurting out here. They're hurting out here, and we need to continue to talk about it. We really, really do. Pastor Marshall Hatch, I know you've got some good news for us today, and I'm so anxious to hear it. Of course, we're going to have you back to talk about the Sankofa Wellness Center, this project that you have that's going up on the west side. It's a wonderful, wonderful project that's going to help us spiritually as well as physically, and it's just in every other way. Of course, Dwight McKee is involved in that, and that is a wonderful thing. But you're the senior pastor of the New Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church. Beautiful cathedral, everybody. I urge you to get over there. Pastor Hatch, what is the good news?
Good morning. How you doing, Santita?
Always
Good
great to hear
morning
your
to
voice.
the radio family today. Yeah, what an incredible. Thank you for the news of the day. I mean, it was the way you themed it, and you landed on the $13.5 trillion that families have lost. Families at the bottom of this socioeconomic system, and how that points to further unrest. You know, the wide disparity between the rich and the poor. And you mentioned Senator Warnock's victory, which of course, is an incredible story in and of itself. The Martin Luther King Church, the Ebenezer Church pastor, emerging as such a pivotal figure in American politics. And then the energy behind it, which is really African American women who again saved the day, for the country, gave us an opportunity to have a reason to hope and a future. Black women in particular. It reminded me of Trevor Noah's, the end of his commentary at the end of his career with this show this week. He said, if you really want to understand America, you have to talk to Black women, the people that were on the bottom of this empire, that can see it from the bottom up, which is, of course, a divine view. God does not look at the universe from the top down, but our theology of our tradition teaches us God looks at the world from the bottom up.
Yeah, and also, just to very quickly, if you want to understand any society, you must look at its women, Black, white, brown, yellow, and red.
Yeah.
And it explains why we are who we are and where we are. But the good news.
But Black women in particular, who have been at the bottom of this and had no agency.
No, and white women too, because you know what? They vote for Kemp, they vote for Trump, they vote against their own interest, Pastor. And I think that as we look at
Black women,
I agree with that. I agree.
Have hope. Absolutely.
I agree, but I'm saying if you want to see what we're fighting against, you also have to look at the counter to our argument. I think we have to look at
theology,
all of it. But the good news,
is the sign of Christmas. That great text in Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 20, where it begins with the most famous man in the world. Everybody knew his name. The most powerful man in the world, Caesar Augustus, unites the Roman Empire at its peak. And his face is even known because he's on the coin, he's on the money. An empire on 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. The Roman Empire. It begins with the most famous man in the world, and then it ends with the least powerful human being on the planet at that moment. And that's this baby born on hay outside of the inn to a poor family in a suburb of Jerusalem in a far-flung province of the Roman Empire, Palestine. And the baby is born, probably the least powerful person on the planet. And so what a contrast, this sign of Christmas, that this baby is the sign of the emergence of divinity. And so it is just an incredible story of the most powerful person, where the chapter begins with the least powerful person by the end of the chapter. What an incredible literature Luke chapter 2 is. And so interesting, because now we'd have to explain to everybody who Caesar Augustus was. Most people wouldn't know walking down the street who was Caesar Augustus. You'd have to explain it to them, who was then the most powerful, most well-known man in the world. But guess what? That baby in that manger outside the inn, you won't have to explain who he is to persons of almost any faith anywhere on the planet. He ends up what? One of the most famous names in the world. Yeshua, Jesus. And so it just is an incredible contrast in that chapter that gives us great insight. It reminds me of Howard Thurman's Jesus and the Disinherited. It is if God identifies with the disinherited intimately in the person of this baby. And the shepherds who are working the night shift, who are essential workers that are also unknown, disrespected, disinherited. They're told this is the sign of the arrival of divine, of the divine. It's a baby wrapped in rags, lying on hay in a stable. My dad was from the country. He used to say the farm animals breathed on them and kept them warm. You know, the country preacher could fix it up. And there he was, and that was the sign. And it's instructive to us as we live our lives and we commemorate not just holidays, but holy days, and reflect on what life is really about. Number one, looking at this sign, this baby in this manger, it tells us that what really matters in life is not just who we are, but whose we are, who we belong to, whose interests we serve, what cause, what power, what principle claims ownership on our lives, on the purpose of our lives. And this baby in our faith tradition belongs to God. And then secondly, the sign says the baby is wrapped in, literally we say swaddling clothes, but these are rags, rag tags, that the most precious gift is not wrapped in fancy wrapping paper with a bow, but literally wrapped in rags, which testifies again that we should spend less attention to what we have on and even more attention to what we have within us. Because this baby has something on the inside that is generating a high quality of life. And then lastly, look at where this baby starts out. The least powerful person in the Roman Empire, contrasted with Caesar Augustus, which reminds those of us that come from places like Greenville, South Carolina, or public housing, like which is my story, and then all of us that have come from places of the bottom of empire, that it's not where we start out that matters, but it's where we end up. And this baby would end up what? The epitome of character, of spirit, of integrity. And so it does not matter where we start out, but it's where we're going, where we end up, what's the trajectory of our lives. And that's really becomes the goal of life, to go through life and come out on the other side as a person of character, of integrity, and whose spirit is not violated. I did see the movie Emancipation about that infamous photograph of the slave who had been whipped, and they call him, name is Gordon, but they call him Whip Peter. He has the whelps on his back and he's facing the camera, and he demonstrates the inhumanity of the slaveocracy. And he looks in the camera, and the stripes are on his back, the scars. And I love the character that played him in the movie. The Will Smith character says, ultimately, all of this happened to me. But he says in that movie, they didn't break my spirit. And that's what happens, of course, in the story of Jesus. At the end, on the cross, as a victim of injustice and capital punishment, he says, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. They didn't break my spirit. And that's what the goal becomes. Not where we start out, how we end up. That's where I want to end up, with my spirit intact. And I work on that every day. It's the daily work. to keep your integrity, to make an impact with your life, and to be a person of high character. Amen.
Amen. And that is the good news, everybody, that there is something good that can come from anywhere, everybody. And oftentimes God puts, what do they say? Right is right if you find it in the trash can, and wrong is wrong if your mama does it. We have to become much more discerning. Everybody, I'm going to try and get Dr. Shanina Knighton back because I wanted to ask her a quick 5 minutes of questions. You know, typically we take her at this time just to find out what's the strain on America's hospitals. That is something that even Politico magazine is writing about. But coming up, we're also going to talk about what's happening in Washington. What does Kyrsten Sinema's defection from the Democratic Party mean? And then, who do you want to have run for president? There is speculation now that former President Trump could be charged. Is that what you need to kind of move past the Trump moment? It's not going to be that easy to move past the Trump moment, and I'll tell you why. Because he won a whole lot of seats on the state level. Back in just a minute. Okay, everybody.
Sending Attorney Connolly and Attorney Hoffler through.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, do we have Chaparral?
Chaparral did not answer.
Okay, all right, then we'll go right to that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, let me speak to them.
Can everyone hear each other?
Okay. Attorney Hoffler, Attorney.
I'm sorry. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, I had you on mute.
No worries. It's good to hear. It's good hearing your voices, everybody, this morning. Great.
And congratulations, BK. I haven't talked to you. You must be celebrating.
I know. Let me tell you, it was so tight that as I was watching TV, when they said Walker is ahead, I switched the channel. I watched the movie because I couldn't even take that narrative. Even though it was temporary, it was just that close.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 60, everyone.
But I couldn't watch her. I turned away too. I said,
yeah, no, it was just that close. And, but hey, a victory is a victory is a victory.
Mm-hmm.
You only have to pass the bar by 1 point. So there. But hopefully Democrats will learn from this. This is a big lesson, a huge lesson.
Well, and to start telling the truth about what's really going on out here. all of Trump's people lost by a hair. So he's not the loser that everybody keeps that the corporate media keep trying to make him to be. And I'm like, yeah, I know y'all want to get rid of him, but it ain't gonna be that easy. Now he's here. Now enough. And he won all these seats. He won 90% of the seats that he sought. See, they go for the jugular, the state
10
level.
seconds.
CK. That's
But he did lose 10% of the most important seats that he sought. So I don't say he's a loser, but this definitely impacted his
He took some hits, but you know what? We'll talk about this on the air.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT, based here in Chicago, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. But Eric Burrows out in California, in LA, I see you. Congratulations on this historic victory of Karen Bass, the former chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, served 6 terms, and now she is the first woman of color, the first woman to serve as mayor of Los Angeles, sworn in by the first woman of color to be the vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, who is a Californian. So this is just history all around. And Mayor Bass said the first thing she wants to do is tackle homelessness, because there's so many moving parts in homelessness. You have people who are mentally ill. You have people who just fallen off the cliff. And you're also looking at people who are living in a state that is extremely expensive. It's just, if you don't make a lot of money in LA and really throughout the state, it's hard to live there. People are moving to Vegas and everything else. It just costs too much money. The rent is just too damn high. So glad that she's going to be doing that. But let's talk about Kyrsten Sinema. We were just talking about her with attorney C.K. Hoffler. So glad to have you back. And attorney Aaron Connolly. So glad to have you back. Of course, brilliant attorneys and political analysts. Of course, you can catch attorney C.K. Hoffler on Court TV. She's a legal analyst there. She's the chair of Rainbow Bush, and the former president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world, and of course, one of the great political organizers of our time, of course, and that's no exaggeration. She's worked everywhere. One of the things we love about attorney Aaron Connolly is that she will get out in these streets and knock on the doors and get the temperature, feel where people are. So we're so glad to welcome you all back to the show. Last Tuesday, we were able to finally wrap up the midterms 2022 with the win, the re-election of Raphael Warnock, Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock, to the U.S. Senate, of course. He is the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, the former home church, the former pulpit of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King of Daddy King. Historic church, historic church. And now he's taking that legacy for a full 6-year term to Washington. And we were excited about it. We said this gives Democrats what they need. They do not have to have this loose power sharing agreement with Mitch McConnell. And then 2 days later, we find that we get this announcement from Kyrsten Sinema. I'm leaving the Democratic Party. That's right. She said on Friday that she had switched her political party affiliation to independent, leaving the Democratic Party just days after the Democrats won a full outright majority, 51 seats in the chamber. Where will she caucus? What does this mean? We do know that means that she won't be primaried, right? So, because she won't be running as a Democrat. Interesting. We do know, according to press reports, that this was something that had been that she had been not mulling over, that she'd been planning to do for some time. But she said, I'm going to wait until the primaries are over so that I am not seen as an outsized force in this primary season. So there's that. So here we are with Kyrsten Sinema. And, CK, you and I, just before we get in, as we get into all of that, because I think all of this leads to that. I went to Ballotpedia because I was whenever I hear the corporate media pushing a narrative, it makes me curious, CK and Aaron. And because I'm skeptical because I was raised to really look at the media and read between the lines. And plus, I've just seen them, they would take blind stories about Dr. King, and they were not true. And they helped to shape the narrative that had him so hated across the country. And I've seen them do it with Reverend and other progressives, right? And so I said, okay, is Donald Trump really losing like this? And actually, I said, I saw that he has won 90% of the seats, 90% of the people that he put up. I said, okay, that was according to Ballotpedia. And, CK, I want you to speak to that, because I was just saying that, according to David Daley, having read his book Rat Effed, the true story of the secret plan to steal our election, Republicans, after President Obama won, said, you all can have the presidency, but we're going to grab these states. And we're going to control the states, because that's how you that's how you shape the congressional districts. That's how you actually elect a president. The electors come from the states, and then the electoral college, they convene, and then they let you know how they're going. So you talk to me, because, I see former President Trump putting together an infrastructure that's formidable in the states. And mind you, the founding fathers said, we want to have balance, but it's like, wow, CK and Aaron, he is locking up these states and no one's paying attention to that. Like at all. CK.
Well, good morning, Santita. Good morning, Aaron. Good morning to everyone. We are paying attention in Georgia. So Senator Raphael Warnock's victory is a sign that Georgia paid close attention. Because you see, I believe, that former President Trump has a very, 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 very good shot at being invited and convicted in Georgia, without a question.
Really?
And very close. Yeah, I do. Bonnie Willis is meticulously, Fulton County VA, putting together her case meticulously. So I believe that he has a good shot at it. In Georgia, we have our eye on that. We have to remember that it's the governor and others that they were not Trump supporters. Trump was very, very upset with the governor. And so they turned their back on the machinations of Donald Trump. That's why there is a case. So in my impression, while Donald Trump did win some percentage, if it's 90%, then 90%, he lost at least 10 or more percent of key races. It's not the volume of the races, it's the quality of the races and what it means. And I think that is the significance of Senator Raphael Warnock's victory. That it was a slim margin, and that where he lost, the margins are very slim, that should be of concern to all of us, of course. But a win is a win is a win, and is, by the way, a win. Slim, not slim, overwhelming or not. And I think that while he has won in other districts, in other places, this is a wake-up call for him, and it should remain a wake-up call for us. Because he's going to run for president of the United States. He's already articulated that. Whether he's indicted or not, he's going to run. Legal problems or not, he's going to run. And we need to understand that and embrace that and prepare for that. So I think the fact that the Senate race is so close in Georgia, and let me tell you, I covered that in Georgia minute by minute, hour by hour. And I have to say, I dropped off for 1 second when I saw the mainstream media reporting that Herschel Walker was ahead. Didn't believe it, didn't want to see it. And I had to turn my TV momentarily, Santita. This was what just way too upsetting. And, I was giving almost running commentary on what was happening because, WAOK and the shows that I had there. And it just was so upsetting to see that. Just as a Georgian, just as someone who's there, who lives and breathes what is happening in Georgia. But fortunately, as I had predicted, and I probably prayed more, I'm not anyone that predicts elections, but I did say I felt that Senator Warnock could win, would pull it off, but it was going to be very tough and very close. And that was the message. And that was the message that resonated with voters. It was kind of tough voting.
Oh, look, I saw it. I went to another channel. I went to HGTV. I did.
Yeah.
I just said, okay, I'm not prepared. I said, I am not ready for this.
Well, I have to tell you, it took the collective effort of many grassroots organizations, including Rainbow Push, Transformative Justice Coalition, the People's Agenda, Black Voters Matter, to really pull out all that they had and go cross country, because it was a severe disinformation campaign. Many people felt, well, I've already voted. Why do I need to vote again? I was told I don't have to vote again. I already voted for Raphael Warnock, and I'm good. I don't have to. So when you are confronting severe misinformation, you've got to counter that with strong information and get people to the polls. And that's what happened. And it worked. But I can tell you, we can't rest on any laurels. What laurels are there to rest on?
Wait. We turned around, and now Kirsten Sinema said 2 days later, I'm out.
Part two.
I mean, look, and so let me ask Aaron, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean for her on the ground before we go to the callers? What does that mean? I understand she won't face a primary challenge because she's not going to be running as a Democrat unless you all decide to run a Democrat as an independent. I don't know. You don't live there anymore, but you have. This is your space. Talk to me. What happened, Aaron?
Well, Kirsten Sinema has been doing some interesting things out in the wild west of Arizona for quite some time now, and so Democrats on the ground know that she has long not been a friend to Democrats in Arizona or really Arizonans. So when she was elected to the Senate, she had strong support from the Democratic Party, the organizing apparatus that is very strong in Arizona to turn a once red state almost blue. It's been a heavy lift thanks to a lot of the organizers on the ground, especially in Maricopa County, folks who looked to organize against Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his racist policies against Latinos. So that was a big block that supported her. These are very progressive folks. This is what got her elected in Arizona as a senator. Since that time, she's had no town hall meetings. She doesn't open her office to constituents unless they're vetted on issues that she wants to talk about. She certainly doesn't speak with the organizers that I worked with for many years on healthcare and gun control and immigration and climate change and all of those pieces. And she has not really been a part of the Democratic Party in Washington for some very important things. She doesn't attend luncheons with the vice president with the same enthusiasm as many other Democratic senators, for example. She doesn't participate in party activities. She did not campaign for President Biden or the Democrats on the ballot in the midterm elections for statewide Democrats that had tough battles because nobody really wants to be seen with her. So this isn't a surprise for a lot of Democrats in Arizona. The reality is, though, is she doesn't have the support of any sort of independent party. What Arizona is 1/3 unaffiliated or quote unquote independent voters, but what they are is registered as unaffiliated with a party. So they can, in certain instances, participate in either a Democratic primary or a Republican one. So Kirsten Sinema will not face the very expensive and likely losing Democratic primary that the poll numbers have shown were not in her favor for the last year or so. We've seen draft Ruben Gallego for Senate campaigns. We see Greg Stanton, the congressman who holds her former congressional seat in Phoenix, getting some pretty strong poll numbers. We hear things about Kate Gallego, who's a very popular and powerful mayor of Phoenix and the ex-wife of Congressman Ruben Gallego. We hear Regina Romero, who's been running for re-election as the mayor of Tucson. So there's a lot of names being floated on the Democratic side to come together and really focus on the general election if Kirsten Sinema even decides to run. Right. Some of these poll numbers are pretty grim, and her shot at a re-election, even using those unaffiliated voters, is is a tough one, right? Because she's still not Republican enough for the Republicans in Arizona that put up Carrie Lake for governor, for example, and got really close to beating the now governor Katie Hobbs. So as you said, Santita, we have to look at the reality of these numbers. And for Kyrsten Sinema to try and split some votes, 3% of Democrats have any sort of favorability for her. So she's not going to take any of those votes. And there's not enough Republicans and independents to really make up that difference.
Well, you know, Robert says she's the classical two-faced backstabber, but it's a little bit more than that. I'm hearing you. I'm feeling you. I got it. But this is politics, everybody. This is about power. And she's a corporatist, as are most Democrats and Republicans today. And in other words, they protect corporations. And, you know, we need to be honest about that. And we need to dig deep and find out who her masters are. And you should find that out about everybody. That's why you need publicly funded campaigns, so that our public officials do not have to go into office raising money and making promises, because that is the nature of the beast. Rahm Emanuel's job when he was in Congress was to get, I think, $200,000, CK and Aaron Connolly, from each congressman. I mean, you walked in with a debt, and he wanted you to get out there and raise that money for the Democratic Party. That was it. We need to get clear on how this thing. That's why I try to share some things with you, so I can let you all know how things work. So, you know, we get our heads out the clouds and understand how this thing really, 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 really works. Let me get to Ted from Bensonville. Ted, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Santita and esteemed panel. Thanks. Yeah, my question is, my feeling is it's just like flat out misrepresentation. You represent yourself as representing the Democratic voters, and then they vote you in, and then you change parties. How can you do, please talk to me how that is okay. It seems like misrepresentation. She should be sued for misrepresentation. She goes in saying she's one thing and then changes on people. How can you do that?
I felt that way about Joe Lieberman, Ted. It's like, this is the most unreliable guy, and y'all want to put him on a ticket, and on the Republican ticket and the Democratic ticket, and then he made it to the Democratic ticket. I was so insulted. I said, you can't trust this guy. He loses as a Democrat, so then he decides, okay, I'm going to run as an independent. What? That's not what independence is about. Independence means that, you know what, I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm going to walk down the middle, or maybe outside the lines.
It should mean that you ran as an independent, at least.
Thank you.
You shouldn't be able to slip once you're in there. Yeah.
No, I agree. But who could we sue? Ted,
everybody's suing each other, but definitely it's not right.
Oh, honey, I'm hearing you. I'm just saying, I wish we could, because I feel like we have been totally misrepresented.
The other individuals are respected individuals, are attorneys, aren't they? Maybe they can answer.
Oh no, I'm pitching it to them, because I am through.
Okay, all right.
Well, there's really no one to sue. I mean, you can sue; it's not going to go anywhere, because these are public officials that can't. If we had the ability to sue politicians for unkept promises, every single politician would be sued. And that's why the framing of it is, I plan to, I expect to, I hope to, with your support. They're very crafty and very coy with how they articulate what they plan on doing, because they can't make any guarantees. And similarly, Kyrsten Sinema, but she's just wishy-washy, but she is what she is. This is not a surprise. Santita, I just want to draw a parallel. The day after Senator Raphael Warnock won the first time, we had the January 5th coup d'etat. That was the day after. 2 days after his victory this time. And I don't think there's anything that happens by coincidence. We have this. I just want to draw that parallel. That's all. I'm not going to read into it and all that. I just want to draw that parallel that Georgia has been on people's minds. Last time, Georgia gave the majority. This time, Georgia gave a decisive victory for 2 days. So, Georgia, like I said, we in Georgia did get and do understand the significance of Donald Trump. It's just that there are forces, even Republican forces, fighting back against that.
Well, but they vote with him most of the time, CK. I mean, for all that Liz Cheney is saying, she voted with him more than 90% of the time. So is this personal or is this political? See, for me, this is political. And, I am so tired of them talking. If you want to make someone irrelevant, you don't mention their name. The corporate media have mentioned his name every single day throughout the day since he lost. They have enlarged him so much that he can run. He is the leading candidate for the Republican nomination right now. Stay right there. Let me go to Pam from Chicago. Pam, what's Ooh, it's about to make me breathless. Where are my smelling salts? Where are they?
Good morning, Santita, and to your guest. I'm just feeling like regarding Senator Sinema. Let me slow down. It's interesting that she made this announcement. It's almost as if she wanted to, I don't want to say nullify, but take the news cycle from the excitement of Senator Warnock's victory and the victory for the people of Atlanta, because they showed up and showed out, and we're thankful for that. Even though the race was close, nonetheless, we have Warnock. So she makes this announcement. I question who she is and why she did it. So I don't believe it's about independence. I believe it's about representing the corporate interest. However, Santita, if we talk about independence and being an independent, if that means that I'm willing to vote for a Republican, then I'd have to reject that. Because at this stage of the game in 2022, I just don't even see the Republican Party as a political party. I know they call themselves that, and I know some factions of them may operate in that way. But right now, I see them as a hate group or the political arm of these hate groups. And lastly, on Sinema. Now, she stated that she continues not to be willing to support any change, I guess, in the filibuster. And I think that might be important right now. However, she's very adamant about protecting any rights for the LGBTQ community. And she's made that very clear. But she doesn't seem to want to do much about just working families. She doesn't want to do much on police reform or even change the rules that would make it easier to help pass legislation for the poor, working class, middle class families. And so that's my concern, that she made the statement when she did. I looked at the local political shows on Sunday, didn't see any reference, not much reference to Warnock's victory, which was huge. Which was huge. So I'm just saying I'm a little bit concerned. And where is the LGBT community and white women chastising her for this move? They can't keep continuing to push out that they're our allies, Santita, and not behave.
But let me give this to you, because I don't know if they say that they're our allies as much as they say that we need to be allied with them, right? And that's where the reciprocity kicks in, because my allies behave differently. The fact is, the overwhelming majority of white women vote against their own interests. They just do. They favor power. And then sadly, that's a human thing too. It's a human thing. Black folks get these good jobs, and sometimes we forget where we come from. That's what people do. It's a sad thing. But I think we're getting to a place where people are going to have to be held accountable. You see how Americans have lost their wealth. We don't have the space right now or anymore. Now you're going to have to. There's an old song from the civil rights movement that they used to sing when they were marching in the 60s and sometimes into the 70s. Which side are you on, Pam? Which side are you on? So that's the question. Which side are you on? Where do you stand when it comes to universal single-payer health care? Where do you stand when it comes to public education, equal access to equal high-quality education, health care, decent housing? Where do you stand? And I think we need to start asking these people who are running for office we need to start asking those questions. And you know what we need to start doing, Pam? And Aaron and CK? We need to start running ourselves. Be broke as the 10 Commandments and run. Have outstanding taxes and run. You just like everybody else. There's not been a perfect person among us. Not one. Don't be afraid. They're gonna say it they're gonna talk about you in the paper, and then the paper's gonna be fish wrap at the end of the day. Don't even pay attention to that. Go on about your business, because we need some real people in real offices helping us with our real problems. CK, I've got less than a minute. You go.
Well, I just want to say this. We never need to rest on our laurels, but we need to take heed and also learn and govern ourselves accordingly by these latest election results, especially in Georgia. The fact that there was a Herschel Walker with his profile that almost won should tell America we are living in perilous times, because Herschel Walker was not qualified on any level. Subjectively, objectively, halfway, no way. He was not on any level should he have been someone put up and almost defeat a sitting incumbent who was actually quite popular in Georgia. So this should tell us that we can never underestimate the power of money, the money that the Republican Party will dump into a race. Secondly, the coordinated effort they ran a strong campaign in Georgia. Gotta hand it to them. Don't agree with them. Disagree with their candidate, but it was an incredibly strong campaign in Georgia, and they almost won. Again, a victory is a victory is a victory, and I take that victory. And thirdly and lastly, Donald Trump is running, indicted or not. So we need to wake up, smell that coffee, and be in a position to counter his extraordinary political clout. I think this latest round of midterm elections weakened his hand without a doubt. Weakened his hand. He did lose some major contests. But he also won others. And to your point earlier, Santita, the Republican Party has been meticulous in putting people in place on a state level, because the U.S. Supreme Court, is kicking everything to the states.
But that's where he won, CK. That's where he won.
That's what
he put up Herschel. He put up these folks, no question. But that's what I think we just have to pay attention to that piece as well. That's all I'm saying. Did he lose some? Did he lose some of these big ticket races? Yep. But on the state levels, he almost didn't miss. We need to pay attention to that too, and why these races are so close. No, hold on. Let's talk about it on Facebook Live before you go, because I got a hard break. Right. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Stay right there. Hold on. Yeah, no, honey, I had a hard break, and I've got these other cities. But keep talking, because we're on Facebook Live now.
Okay, and I do have to run. But one thing I want to say is, I think we need to give credit where credit is due. Biden and his team did pull out and did make history. So we want to give credit where credit is due. And we just don't need to rest on any laurels. Don't need to rest on any laurels. And recognize that the fight is real and the fight will continue.
Oh, yeah. Look, I'm giving them all credit. I'm just looking at everything now. I'm just trying to see where we are. Just trying to look at where we are. Because I'm like, we didn't realize how important these state offices are. Now we have people we're trying to run people for Secretary of State. Because you see that, wait a minute, when it comes to these presidential elections, they're the ones who are in control.
Absolutely.
Running to be an elector. It's like it's something that we didn't even think about. Up until 84, when Reverend ran, we didn't know any of this. And I'm just saying, we're finding out much more about the mechanics of government. And that's important for us to understand. Because while we're looking, because many of us get caught up in the shine, and it's exciting. Look, my brother holds a federal elective office now, and I think it's a great thing. But I know when he comes back to Chicago, he has got to deal with Chicago politics. All politics is what? Local.
Well, Santita, it is great to be on your show. I do have to run.
We miss you.
And this is a great discussion. Miss you too. And hope to be in Chicago soon. But until then, I will talk to you soon. I'll give you a call a little bit later when I have a break. I'm going into a meeting now, but I will give you a call a little bit later.
Please, because I want to include you in something, and I need your permission.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. And Aaron, so great to hear your lovely voice. So
so great to hear you too, CK. Have a great day, and we'll watch you on Court TV.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I am. This week I have my appearance is not going to be as frequent because I'm in Florida preparing for 3 trials actually.
Oh, okay.
I think on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll release all the information and Santita our next show, get it to you all. But I'm excited about talking about all these cases, and I can tell you, when I'm talking about these cases on Court TV, one thing that resonates with me is we're seeing how divided and how difficult the crisis the people are in by some of these cases.
Sending Dwight McKee, Attorney Jones, and Bryce Green through.
You really can tell that people are suffering, really suffering by the types of cases that are escalating up and going through the court system, especially the criminal cases. So, got a lot of work to do here in this country, and it doesn't help when Kristen Cinema is switching, flopping, flip-flopping, this and that.
And it was dishonest. I mean, what she did was dishonest. It's dishonest. It's like, what?
I guess I have such low expectations of her. Such low expectations.
No, I have low expectations, but I just think it's dishonest. And that for me is problematic. Have some integrity. I don't have to agree with you, but good grief, have some integrity, for heaven's sake. Oh.
Well, I don't think I'm looking at integrity. But anyway, ladies, and to the audience, goodbye. And Santita, I'll reach out a bit later.
Okay. Oh, I just pulled up Replace Cinema.
Okay.
Replace Cinema. Lord have mercy. Hello, Dwight. And who do I have with me this morning?
How you doing?
We got Bryce Green, Attorney Jones, Attorney Connolly, and Dwight McKee.
Wonderful. Bryce, how are you?
Good morning, Santita. I'm good.
Good. And Attorney Jones?
Good morning, Santita. I hope you're doing well.
I hope you're doing well.
Recovering nicely.
Oh my gosh. I was like, when I kept seeing all your distances change, I said, I did the March of Dimes walkathon. And I said, my girlfriend Angelique and I did that. I'll never forget that as long as we live. We were running our mouths so much that we actually walked to Evanston, you all. And we were like, we were literally the last people to finish the race. The walkathon. I'll never forget that as long as I live. People, because we were teenagers, so the adults, there were a lot of adults who came out because they were like, we were so worried, and blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, wow. This is, whew. And so, you've got these marathons. And do you train throughout the year?
Normally, I usually would do like a half marathon a month prior to COVID. And then, I would train in between the half marathon. But this is the first time I just didn't follow the instructions. And
okay.
Didn't read the instructions closely. So I ended up doing an extra 3 miles. So.
No, not the kid. No. No, I'm not going to say that because you know what? You do what you have to do. And, to make sure that your heart is healthy and all of that. I laugh and I joke, but nothing funny about it. Thank you so much. Nothing funny about your health. And that is a wonderful thing. So God bless you. So everybody
I just considered it training for the next one.
Oh, well, honey, like I said, God bless you. Ooh. I dated a guy who was a marathoner. And yes, I was at the finish line when he finished in New York. And we had a lovely picnic. But going on the marathon, not the kid. No.
Have your banana at the end.
Oh, no. I said, look, I will be here for you. And I was.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the real big thing in New York. Just going through all the boroughs and all of that. We had a great time and had a party out there in Central Park. Yes.
I hope to do that one sometime.
Oh, look, Let us know. We'll be in the park. If it's a beautiful day. Oh,
Change the world.
great
Change the
picnic. It's
world.
wonderful.
We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
At AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. It has been said that now there is a path for Donald Trump to be charged. What will that mean? Will that heal the nation? Is that what we need? And look at all of these races all across the country. They've been tighter than this. So the country, we didn't see a blue wave. We did not. We saw blue winds, which are very, very important for governance and for getting our agenda, really helping America to become better. I mean, don't you need relief, everybody? But that having been said, there's a lot going on here, and we need to talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. What will it mean if Trump is charged? Will you feel better? Will that promote healing in America? Will it promote anger with his adherents, which is roughly half of America? People say what they want. I don't see him losing steam. I just don't, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the United States. Household wealth is down by $13.5 trillion in 2022, a $6.8 trillion drop in the first 3 quarters of 2022 alone. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of wealth. 9 million American young people have gone back home to live with their families. So people are not finishing school and going to get a home. They can't afford to do that. There's a lot that we need to really look at, the social and spiritual elements that are promoting unrest in America today. So let's talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Who do you want to run for president? Most Americans aren't Trump or Biden. Fewer are enthusiastic about President Biden, but his numbers, to be fair, are rising. So, because he's had a lot of wins, everybody. He's had a lot of legislative wins. He's up against a headwind, against a hostile Congress. He's been able to get some things done. So let's talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show today. 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT in Chicago. We're going to have a high of 40 degrees. It will drizzle. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 35 degrees, cloudy. In the NFL, thankfully, the Bears are off until the 18th. Oh, my heavens. But the Lions were triumphant over the Vikings 34-23. And in the NBA, the Hawks are triumphant over the Bulls in a heartbreaker 123-122. And the Timberwolves will be playing the Trailblazers tonight. The Oilers will be facing off against the Wild tonight. Who you got in the World Cup? Well, for the first time in history, an African team will be in the quarterfinals. Morocco. That victory was achieved on Friday. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? We are going to see, but everybody in the Arab and African worlds are celebrating that victory in particular. More than 15 million people in the United States and 14 states are under winter weather alerts as a multi-day severe storm begins today for parts of the South and southern central U.S. Praying for all of them. The lower Mississippi Valley, Louisiana, Mississippi could see tornadoes. Let us be prayerful, but it has left California where they have had feet of snow dumped in various parts of California. The storm already made for icy and dangerous conditions from northern California, where you do a lot of skiing, to Nevada, with blowing snow and near zero visibility. The historic Artemis 1 mission came to a momentous close on yesterday as NASA's Orion spacecraft made a successful splashdown in the Pacific Ocean off of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. The mission sent the uncrewed, that is unmanned, spacecraft on a trip around the moon for a little over 25 days to test whether its capsule could make a safe return to Earth. Now that is cleared, that hurdle, they're going to put people on the next flight. They're going to choose a crew of astronauts. We understand they're going to be very diverse, people of color, all of that, to send astronauts on a similar trajectory on the Artemis 2 and 3 missions. That's 2024 and 2025. 25, everybody. Well, those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get right to it. We're seeing that household wealth, as I said, down by $13.5 trillion in 2022 alone, the second worst drop in the history of the United States of America. Do you think that's driving some of the unrest? I want to hear what your thoughts are, because we are looking at just things are just so politically charged, socially charged. People don't have any money, and people are not able to buy homes. We're turning into a nation of renters. There's nothing wrong with being a renter, but the American dream is to own even your own patch of grass, and more Americans are not getting that. Corporations are buying up your homes. Corporations are buying up everything, and they're controlling everything. Does that make you feel comfortable? Is that the American dream? Is that what's feeding this unsettledness in America that gives rise to a January 6th and lots of mini January 6s going on all over the country? Is that why no one's really quite satisfied with President Trump or former President Trump or President Biden? People are like, I want somebody else to run. But who? And now we hear from former Department of Justice officials that they think that the Department of Justice is on a path to charge Trump. What will that do? How will that make people feel? It'll make people who don't like him feel great, but what about the people who do like him, or the people who like him marginally, who feel that he's been picked on? Some people really do feel that way. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Is the indictment of former President Trump the elixir that America needs? Will it move everybody into another place? Or will it make us more at odds than ever before? Of course, joining attorney Aaron Connolly is Bryce Green from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, noted social scientist Dwight McKee, and the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, attorney Darrell Jones. Let's get right to it. Attorney Aaron Connolly, just very quickly, your thoughts. Could the indictment of President Trump help us to move into another place? Would it make us happier, or will it make us more contentious?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to your panel and all of the morning stars out there. And, we'll see what happens with Donald Trump. It looks like we're moving in that direction, but the reality is, and as you pointed out in the last hour, Trump and his movement had quite a lot of victories, while the higher profile races he invested in or endorsed candidates in did lose. He still won a lot when we
barely.
Correct.
I forgot to add that part.
And let's take a look at some of the races he won. Okay, he and his movement brand of MAGA Republicans focused on apologizing for their actions on January 6th, and still running for many school boards across the country that are focused on limiting access to books and firing teachers for no reason, or reasons that they deem religiously or morally unacceptable. So these are some of the concerns I have, regardless of a Trump indictment. We look at some of these local elections where these folks have gained power, and we see that local control can have dire consequences when we look at some of the county clerk races, for example. So regardless of whether or not Trump is charged, what the reaction will be, the reality is his people still will be taking the oath of office in positions of power, or already have, in many municipalities and states throughout this country. And what does that mean for the 2024 election, whether he is at the top of the Republican ticket or not? So that's my bigger concern right now. We'll have to see how this news cycle plays out, and really what the Justice Department is looking at here.
That's why I want us to pay attention to everything. Don't just listen to what the corporate media are telling you. Please don't, because they mislead all the time. And they have an agenda too, to protect the corporations, just like many of these politicians out here. Whew. Attorney Darrell Jones, your thoughts?
Santita, very interestingly, I think that when it comes to the indictment of President Trump, I agree with what I think Brett Bahara, the former U.S. attorney of New York, said when he said that, at this point, the Department of Justice is really loaded and ready for bear. And I think that he's going to be indicted, and I think they're going to push it through. But when you're talking about the indictment and potential prosecution of a former U.S. president, you got to be certain that you have all of your ducks in a row, all the information in place. It's going to be extremely high profile because it's a historical measure of what's going on. And, when we dig a little deeper into what Merrick Garland, Attorney General Merrick Garland, has done just within the last, month or so, when he has the appointment of Jack Smith, who, as the special counsel, who is not a lightweight whatsoever, only comes in for really significant matters. That's a major step. And then you have Jack Smith and the DOJ bringing in attorneys that are outside of DOJ. They're bringing attorneys out of private employment with specialties in the areas that are going to help to prosecute this case. You have them bringing in folks that are coming in from government jobs, that they're leaving those jobs to get into place or putting on leave and absence to get into place with regards to the appointment and the position for the prosecution of this specific case. So there are really a lot of significant steps that the Department of Justice is taking with regards to preparing for this prosecution. So I think there is going to be the indictment. I believe there's going to be the prosecution. The bigger question will become, as you stated, is what will be the response of it? What will be the reaction of it? Will the Democrats stand up and applaud? I don't know. And part of that is going to be, one of the things that is always most at issue, I think, for people is what's happening in my house. What can I afford? What can I not afford? The economy, those bread and butter issues, those kitchen table issues. So would a prosecution of former President Trump overtake those interests? And I don't think that it would. But, there's nothing to say we can't certainly have both going on at the same time. But it's going to have an impact, because if the economy is not improving, if people having to work two jobs to pay for what they were paying for with one job, it's going to be a problem. So I look at all of that that's going on, and I'm like, it's definitely going to be, I think, an indictment, prosecution of Trump. I don't know what impact that's going to have politically across the nation, and what that's going to do for particularly President Biden's poll numbers at this point in time. So, that's sort of the quandary that I find myself in that analysis.
Bryce Green, what's your assessment?
My assessment is similar. There seems to be a lot of serious issues that affect Americans every day, that are kitchen table issues. Why are prices going up? Why is it so hard to pay bills? And in the American public, there seems to be a lot of pretending going on when it comes to this Trump indictment. Let's say that Trump is indicted. Well, I don't think Americans will really care all that much, right? A lot of people who already love Trump will continue to love Trump, and a lot of them who are skeptical will continue to be skeptical. But what I think the major problem is that they're pretending, is that a lot of people are pretending that indicting Trump would be some sort of justice for the country, as if prosecuting these minor crimes, and, they're crimes, I mean, he's a criminal, would go any way towards restoring a sense of justice in America. And let me talk a little bit about what I mean. Trump committed all sorts of demonstrable crimes during his time in office. I mean, he assassinated a foreign leader, almost sparking an international war. He tried to overthrow the elected government of Venezuela, which is obviously illegal. He supported the illegal war of aggression by Saudi Arabia on Yemen, which has led to hundreds of thousands of deaths and millions of people on the brink of starvation. And yet you don't hear a peep about that in the media. And the question is, why not? Well, the answer is because if you were really to seriously address those things, the media would have to contend with the fact that it isn't just Trump who is the criminal here, that these issues go back administrations, right? And each administration has had its own set of criminal activities that get completely ignored by the media, right? I mean, the Obama administration didn't even want to prosecute the Bush administration for their obvious war crimes, and they allowed the banks to get away with illegally kicking people out of their homes. And so when we talk about justice in America, we have to first address the entire rotten system wherein people are able to get away with all sorts of things. And this indictment over, it could be overcharging the government, it could be tax fraud, it could be anything like that. None of that has really affected people's lives in the way that the rampant criminality that happens every day does. And until that starts to be addressed, then I don't think the political situation in America will change. You can indict Trump and you can call it justice, but that's not necessarily the case. It's a fig leaf to hide the real rot that defines the American system. And until we're able to address that, then we're really just spinning in circles. You can indict Trump. Well, what next? There are 40,000 other Trumps. And it's true that none of them are a sitting former president. But again, like I said, president commits all sorts of dangerous and heinous crimes.
A war crime is a crime.
Exactly.
Come on, Bryce.
Exactly.
You're responsible for one death, let alone hundreds of thousands or millions of deaths. Are you serious right now? Not you. I'm just saying, just generally. I'm like, come on. We would never have an American president have to go before the ICC, ever. We don't even pay attention to them unless we want to send someone there. Bryce.
Precisely.
Come on.
Precisely.
It's a joke.
And when we talk about, again, like this is coming at the same time that the Biden administration is giving Mohammed bin Salman complete immunity for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
Wait a minute, they let him become a head of state. His father made him head of state, so you cannot prosecute him. And everyone knows that he was responsible for the murder of, and some people call it the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. I mean, come on. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to figure out. 773.
So this is what I mean when I say that the sense of justice in America is pretty lopsided and pretty skewed. And then until we start addressing these things, we can't really start talking about it seriously.
I want you to call us at 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. Would the indictment of President Trump be a fig leaf over some bigger issues? Ooh, Dwight, I cannot wait to hear you respond to everything that you have just heard. Call us at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Would an indictment of President Trump for the crimes that he has been accused of committing, after an indictment, you still have to go to court and these crimes you have to prove that someone is guilty. Would that make you feel better? And what's going on? Because it seems that the American electorate, and I don't know how they're asking the questions, but no one's really enthusiastic about having Donald Trump or President Biden run for the presidency in 2024. And yet there are two leading candidates. So what does that mean, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And everybody join us over here on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We're going to be talking during the break. And I want you to like and share the show. Like and share the show. Like and share. Ooh, that's right, Carol. Oy vey. Yes, that's right. All of that. My sister out there in California. And happy Hanukkah. Know it's coming. All right, stay right there with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Should President Trump be indicted? If he's indicted, will that make a difference? Will that make you feel better? Will that make us be better? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show here on WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and the voice of progressive Minnesota, AM 950 radio. And of course, I'm on Twitter at Santita J and Instagram, Santita Jackson IG, and Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook. Please like me there, everybody. Please like me there and share that page. The Santita Jackson landing page, I can't take any friends there. I mean, they keep flushing everybody out. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. You all keep talking. Dwight, going to come right back to you, so don't waste your best stuff over here. But the Lord keeps giving you great stuff, so there we go. Are you all there?
Those are all there.
Okay. I mean, what?
Good morning, Dwight.
How you doing?
Dwight, that's
I'm doing
Daryl.
good. How are you doing?
So let's talk about
You was right on point.
Tim Scott. Yeah, let's talk about Representative Tim Scott running for president, trying to take care of the Republican Party, heal their divide.
Well, yeah, they're going to do that. And they're going to come up with some really, really appealing black candidates because they're making it their business to do that. Are the Democrats doing that? Every progressive black Democrat has to run against the party. The Democrats are the ones who resist. I will give the Republicans this. They went with the flow with Trump. They didn't like it, but they went with it. Trump was not their choice. Trump overthrew the party. He got rid of Jeb, Ted. He ran these jokers off the stage. I've never seen anything like it. It was too rich. Oh, God.
Right. It seems like the Republicans, when they see populism, they can take it and co-opt it.
Yes.
When Democrats see populism, they have to kill it.
Well, now
I don't know if we would ever have seen Democratic leaders fall in line behind Bernie Sanders in public. I don't think we ever would have seen that had he won the election. But we saw that with the Trump Republicans. We saw Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, all those people. They sort of fell in line. They sort of at least publicly kissed the ring.
They did. They said, okay, well, we're going to ride this horse. And you know what? And they voted with him. Liz Cheney voted with Trump 90% of the time. I'm like, y'all stop looking at all these big, bright, shiny offices. The presidency. When Barack Obama won the presidency, according to David Daley's book, the top Republican operatives said they can have it. They can have it. We're going to go take over these states. Because that controls Congress anyway. That determines who is able to run.
Red map.
Come on now. The electors come out of the states. They don't come out of D.C. And the electors elect your president. Am I off here or am I by myself? I feel like I'm in a pulpit. If you hear me. David Daley's book, Rat Aft, talks about it, Aaron. He said, hey, that was the decision they made. And we lost 1,000 plus seats during the Obama presidency. And we have seen that play out.
60 seconds, everyone.
And that's not a blame game. That's just like, oh my gosh. When I found out that we lost 1,000 plus seats, Democrats did, I said, how did that happen?
It's crazy to go back and look at the organizational plans that the right wing billionaires who funded the Republican Party, they really sat down. They were like, well, how can we capture the legislature of the country? Well, they were like, well, if we put a bunch of money into these state districts and we capture state legislatures, then redistrict to the point where we can gerrymander in our favor, well, then we win. And the Democrats had absolutely no response to that. And it was astounding. And now we're seeing the results.
Okay.
10 seconds, everyone.
I think that we need to start talking about that.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am greedy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It seems that former President Trump might be on a track to be indicted. Will that make a difference? How will that make you feel? Do you think that will be a healing moment for the country, or will it be a divisive moment for the country? Why is it that no one's really enthusiastic? Well, they're not terribly enthusiastic about Biden or Trump running for the presidency. Who do you want to see run? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Dwight, why don't you respond to what you've been hearing from Bryce Green and Attorney Aaron Connolly and Attorney Darrell Jones?
Well, I see at least three situations lining up if they indict Trump. One is if they indict Trump and he's not the candidate, whoever runs is going to have to cut a deal with him. Whoever the candidate is, part of them being the candidate is going to be them having to cut a deal with him. And part of that deal is going to be, I will endorse you if you pardon me. So that's going to be the first thing on the table. Second thing, to indict him is not for him to be found guilty. As if he has a jury of his peers, it's going to be very hard to find 12 people who are not 12 of all whom are for Trump. I mean, anti-Trump. And the same way that he was not convicted in Congress when he was impeached, because you had congressmen who were pro-Trump or pro-Trump. It's the situation you're going to run into in a jury trial. Is just if one out of every two people in this country is pro-Trump, it's going to be very hard for them to convict him. And so all you be bringing is more publicity to him. Thirdly, and I totally agree with the brother, is that I think there's two fears with indicting Trump. One is that he don't become a mirror, he becomes a window, and it gives people a chance to peep into how the country really runs. And when you start talking about who stole the cookie from the cookie jar, he ain't the cookie monster. Everybody got crumbs on their mouth, and they don't want to open up the window to the system so people understand how the system really works. That it is the billionaires don't pay taxes, and the billionaires have no accountability, and the billionaires live on a different level than we do. And Trump is very transparent about that. He said, if you want me to pay taxes, change the tax code. I don't pay the taxes, I'm as smart as the next guy. And I don't think they really want us to see how the system works. And then lastly, you really run the risk of a revolution. I don't know if you all have seen what happened in Germany last week when they had to arrest 50 people because they was going to overthrow the government. But here you have thousands of people who are looking for a pretext to overthrow the government. The first thing Republicans are going to do is start their investigations. They'll probably start with Biden's son, which is going to be a mess. And as they begin to expose all the inconsistencies of the Bidens and the Hillarys and the Obamas, it's going to be just like the brother said. It's these war crimes. We're going to find out that those are not war crimes. Those are the American policies. That's what makes America go. And if it looks like they're trying to indict him to keep him from being the president, then it becomes a pretext for mass revolution and mass reaction, and you'll start seeing guerrilla warfare all over the country from his crowd and the crowd that's just looking for a reason to overthrow the government.
So you see
it,
this.
It ain't, that cut and dry.
So you see this getting ugly. This Republican Congress, barely Republican. You see them going after Hunter Biden. You see this becoming an ugly moment.
It depends on what side you're on. It'd be ugly for the Democrats. It'll be divine for the Republicans. They've been waiting on an opportunity to go after Hillary and those emails. They've been waiting for the opportunity to go after Hunter and the DLC cut and his cocaine use. And they're gonna have a field day, I guarantee you, on the Democrats.
But Dwight,
have to be.
Everyone has known that he has been troubled. That he's been a young man who has struggled, right? That's well known.
But no, this is more than that, Santita. This is the deals he's cut with foreign governments, with China, with the Ukraine. This is the real politics of how this thing works. This is influence peddling. This is promoting his family. And by the time it's all over, the one who may not be able to run is Biden. Take my word on this one. It's going to go there.
Bryce Green, what are your thoughts?
I agree to an extent. I don't know how much political violence will be started as a result of this. There are always people chomping at the bit, looking for any excuse, and especially right now with the cultural civil war that's happening, where you have right wingers taking shots at power stations and things like that. I only expect that to increase as the political temperature of the country increases. But also, you're right. There is the issue of just Congress and the executive branch being used to wage exclusive political warfare. You're going to see investigations of Biden and of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. You're probably going to see investigations of the Obama years and Hillary years. And while I would like to see those people investigated in a serious and measured and methodical way, I don't think that the Republican Party is going to end up doing it successfully. I mean, remember what happened with Benghazi? There were weeks and weeks of all these hearings, all these grand statements, but the Republicans never really got to the heart of the matter, which is that the U.S. government helped overthrow Gaddafi and destroyed an entire country, and then started shipping weapons out of the country. That was never front and center, but that's a serious issue. All the other stuff that they talked about, it was just the superficial stuff about Hillary Clinton's character. So I don't really trust the Republicans to dig up anything serious. But they're going to do it. They're going to try. And they're going to be waging political warfare. And the response is going to be that whoever gets into office next is going to have to wage political warfare. And then the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy. Meanwhile, the real issues that Americans care about are going to suffer. The real issues, things like corporate control, corporate consolidation, price gouging, extremely high rents, the buying up of the housing stock in America, all of those issues are going to be by the wayside in favor of these political issues that won't even be investigated properly. And so that is a worry about how our democracy can function when the attention span of the people in Washington are on petty things and ignoring the real criminality that affects everyday life.
And I want us to really understand that so much of this fight that we're watching with the Cheneys and the Trumps and on and on, it's personal. Liz Cheney voted with President Trump 90% of the time. These people are angry that the establishment Republicans were pushed out by Donald Trump. I mean, that's just my read on it. Now, if does anyone agree, disagree before I go? Well, think about that. Let me bring up Robert from Gurnee. Robert, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for having me on. I agree completely with what was said previously about how serious and crippled our justice system is. We don't have a justice system. What we have now in this country is an open schism that has turned everything into a political issue with the extreme right against the left. And right now it's liberals and progressives. The most important thing that liberals and progressives need to start to realize, we live in a fascist country. You cannot openly say what you actually believe about anything without the threat of violence from the right. And liberals need to sober up and realize about a phenomenon that happened in Nazi Germany. It was called the shock of delayed comprehension. And progressives and liberals need to realize we're dealing not with Republicans, we're dealing with a fascist party that's heavily armed. And another recommendation I'll make, and I know this is going to blow some heads off, stop talking about guns. I'm not interested in being disarmed and being a pacifist against a right-wing fascist party that openly talks about killing progressives, liberals, or anybody on the left. And that's what we need to get to. We need to sober up and face up. Because Trump's not going to be, he's not going to be convicted of anything. Just for like what the gentleman said, you're not going to find 12 people. All it's going to take is one person. That's it. He's not going to be convicted. And we need to sober up and start protecting ourselves and facing the future, realizing, understanding what we're really up against.
And what are we up against?
Fascism, white supremacy of the worst kind that has festered since the beginning of this country, was never resolved from the Civil War, and it's out there. Homophobia, xenophobia, misogyny, all of the things of patriarchy that have oppressed people and marginalized people for centuries is coming to roost, and they're seeing it potentially slip away, and they're freaking out, the fascists are, and they're going to get more violent. It might take another year, 2 years, 3 years. It may, they'll find the opportune moment when they can strike and just create disorder. But that's what it's about. It's all the things we talk about as far as what's wrong, how wrong people are treated in this country. They don't care. They're colonizers. That's their mindset. They don't care.
Robert has spoken. Does anyone want to respond?
I think he's absolutely correct. And he has an inside view on this thing. It's going there.
You've been saying that for a long time, Dwight. Why?
And it's been going there for a long time. It's not like I've ever been wrong in saying it. It's that it only gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Because it is the character of the country. It is the nature of the people that we're dealing with. He called them fascists, and he is correct. They are fascists. They are white supremacists who feel like they don't have a mandate from God to be in charge of the world. And there's a disdain and a contempt for not just everybody else's rights, but everybody else's humanity. And so it's going to take the country there. And I totally agree with him. Is that we have to get prepared for it. He said a little while ago, and it's a very hard thing, that he thinks that we should arm ourselves. And it's very hard for liberals and the pacifists to take that position because we're so nonviolent. But we will be nonviolent to our dismay in this situation. We have to protect ourselves because it is going there.
Attorney Jones, your thoughts, Attorney Connolly?
I listen to it all, and I think back, and I think, certainly there's a lot of accuracy that's there with regards to how the Republican conservatives are viewing things, and they've certainly, taken up that whole far right-wing spectrum, and they're afraid to confront it. And we continue to see that. That's from their elected officials. They're afraid to confront it. I don't think that's necessarily, obviously the entirety of the conservative movement that's out there. And I wonder if the more mainstream conservatives are now the minority of their party. They certainly appear to be the minority voice of their party and trying to stay away from the fascism that Dwight and the caller speak of. And that becomes very concerning because the question is, will somebody from their party step forward and try to make it mainstream again and shoo away the foundations of fascism and the actions of fascism that we've seen the party display. So I think that becomes a major part of that analysis. As for the Democratic side of it, we certainly have to be ready for the steps that they've shown that they're willing to take in terms of taking those supremacy steps, and no one speaking up to say that it's wrong. So I think that I agree with both Dwight and the caller on that on the point.
Aaron, Attorney Connolly, your thoughts?
Well, I think the caller's point is right in many respects with the level of extremism we've seen, not only in our country but throughout the world. Right, Dwight, I think brought up some really relevant points to that. He alluded to the plot in Germany uncovered last week to overthrow the government. Right, there is this,
and we're not paying attention to that. Aaron, that the whole, it's the zeitgeist, it's the spirit of the times. And, particularly in the Western world, there is so much unrest. I mean, you see the former colonies moving to the front of the line. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. I mean, metaphorically and actually, they are coming up with their own currencies. They are moving on. Gaddafi was killed, many argue, because he had come up with a common currency for all of the African nation states. And now you might have killed the man, but you didn't kill the dream. The African Union is moving in that direction right now. Ukraine, you could not get agreement from India, China, Africa on this being a world war. You just couldn't do it. And people got angry when I would say that, when Bryce Green would say it, but it's like, y'all, they're not going to look at this the same way because they relate to Russia very differently, Aaron. And I think that, just seeing what happened in Germany and how this cell, I'm not going to call them a terrorist cell because I don't know who they are, but I do know that they were lining up to overthrow the government, Aaron. Of course, they don't do that in Europe. Isn't that what Prince William said? We don't have war over here, but okay. Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, Aaron, what are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at what I hope is the the last push and fight from these fascists all over the world, and we know that when somebody is against the wall, that's when it gets worse in the fight, right? When there's desperation and some folks lining up to dismantle the cons that they've been running. And I think we see potentially the end of that with Trump getting indicted. We saw his companies formally criminally indicted, which has never happened, right? There's been years and years of allegations, charges, examples of impropriety. His charity was under investigation, but this is the first time that his actual company was found criminally liable, right? And that's a big deal. That's a trend in that direction. And as the leader, at least in the United States, is held to account or starting to be held to account, we will see those reactions get more intense, and I think have to be prepared for the reality of that. We saw threats throughout the nation to the point where the FBI was warning folks to be extra vigilant at religious celebrations, particularly holiday celebrations in the LGBTQ and in the Jewish communities, as we have Hanukkah coming up in many municipalities. Those holidays, there was a formal warning that went out that right-wing and fascist extremists would be planning these types of attacks. So this is a real concern for folks. I live in Highland Park. We had a 4th of July incident this summer that was a mass shooting. So this is something that families and folks are really thinking about, and it's a real threat enough for our government to be issuing these warnings. So we have to take it seriously.
So where do you see us going from here? I mean, because it does seem like we are in this moment that is that's just very electric. I'm watching the corporate media, Bryce Green say, Trump lost Trump and he's a loser. He just had a horrible season. I'm like, he won 90% of the seats that he ran people for. Did he lose some of these high profile seats? Sure. But he also set an infrastructure from state to state to state that, what do they say? Voting count, but who counts the votes matters even more. I mean, Bryce, because I don't even think I don't think we're even being told the story accurately. We're not being told it's not being given to us straight. Bryce?
Yeah, I know, Santita. I totally agree. When we talk about the threat of fascism in this country, it's a big, scary word, but it's a serious topic, and it doesn't end with Trump, right? I mean, even if Donald Trump was to fall from popularity, you still have the Republican Party, driven by lunatic culture wars, anti-trans bigotry, anti-gay bigotry, and also the racial tension. There's a lot of racism that animates their policy. But the biggest thing above all that gives the Republican Party a lot of power is their union, their alliance with corporate America. Right, their entire plan, if they get into office, to further militarize the country, to gut the public welfare system, to privatize public assets, to give more tax breaks to corporations, to increase corporate power, and to increase their entire decision-making power over the entire economy. Now, that is fascism. When you have an elite group of people deciding almost everything for the country. And the problem with the Democratic Party is that they're not really opposing them. Since the Clinton years, in fact, a lot of the Democrats have adopted this exact same policy. Remember, it was Obama who was trying to privatize Social Security in a grand bargain. His healthcare plan was essentially a subsidy for the entire pharmaceutical and healthcare insurance industry. This is dangerous. This directly steals from the American people's pockets. And this exacerbates the economic anxieties that they feel. And typically, when people feel that they don't really control their economic lives, well, they're going to turn to the more cultural issues, which is like those warnings that you were talking about, like Highland Park, these things. Well, if people don't have an outlet to legitimately change the makeup of their country, well, they're going to lash out in different ways, and in a lot of dangerous ways, too. And that situation really hasn't been addressed. I mean, the Republican Party is, someone mentioned earlier the prospect of a mainstream Republican bringing mainstream conservatism back into the fold. Well, I wish I could share that optimism, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Right now, the Republican primary race looks like a race between, Trump, who is, a charlatan, criminal con man, and Ron DeSantis, who is also a charlatan criminal con man. In fact, going back to the issue of the serious, dangerous war crimes that we commit, Ron DeSantis was actually an overseer at some of the CIA black sites in which they were torturing people. Several victims recall seeing him there laughing and trying to get in their heads, trying to make sure that the torture was more effective. So that's the other guy who is in the running to take control of the Republican Party. Neither of those sound very good to me. I don't know about our listeners, but neither of those sound like anything that anyone wants in a functioning democracy. But yet that's where we are, and that's where the only two choices are.
And fascism.
And the Democratic Party seems incapable of reacting to that in a serious way.
Well, because fascism comes from the left and the right.
That actually affect Americans.
Well, I mean, because fascism comes from the left and the right? I mean, Daniel Perez is making the point. Fascism is already, he said it's already here, but it's toned down fascism. And the neoliberals who are fascists too, want to put diverse faces to control the population of those groups. Complexion does not change direction, everybody. I mean, look, I think it's great when we make history and we get people of color in these offices. I think it's great, Daryl. Attorney General Jones and Attorney Aaron Connolly. I think it's great when we get women. I think it's great. But I know that you can do much more under the cover of darkness. I know you can do much more. You can make Great Britain much more aggressive and much more imperialistic under Maggie Thatcher and under Queen Elizabeth than you can under King George, than you can under John Major, than you can. And we need to watch that. We need to make a decision about where we want to be. And you know what? Open your eyes and ask. Start looking, investigating, and ask the tough questions, everybody. Ask the tough questions. Will an indictment of President Trump, will it make things better? I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on Santita Jackson and Friends. We're streaming on Facebook. And I'm going to get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel. It's a joy to be with you. Are you ready for Christmas? Can you believe it's next week? Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love this time of year. All I need is a whole lot of snow. I love you, everybody. Thank you, Devin, for a great show. Love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. But stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Going to get some wonderful thoughts from this wonderful, brilliant panel. God bless. Yeah, I want to get some closing thoughts from you all. Daryl, bless your heart. I'm sending you a big, big, big hug after your marathon yesterday. What are your thoughts? I mean, where do we go from here, Daryl?
Well, it's a tough question as to where we go from here. Certainly, at some point, I would think that on the Republican side of the aisle, that they've got to reclaim who they are and the mainstream part of their policy and their party. They seem to be riding, just the wave of excitement that comes from being on the fringe and on the edge and all this, wildness that's out there. And, it used to be said when President Trump was in the White House was, where's the adult in the room to control this, to say you can't do this? And I sort of feel like that's where they are right now. Where is the adult in their party to say this isn't right? We've got to correct this to identify with the majority of Americans rather than, identifying with this small minority group that's yelling. But that's what I think is needed on their side. But, on the Democratic side, we too have to address a lot of issues because we know that, President Biden was not really the choice of the majority of Democrats initially. He certainly was a compromise candidate. And given where we are now with the economy and all the other challenges that are presented to our country, I don't know that we're going to line up behind him again. But
was he the compromise candidate, or was he the candidate who the establishment wanted? They pushed Bernie out. They pushed Elizabeth Warren out. The people's candidates were pushed out. That's just my thought. And then because everyone was asking Biden to leave, remember? He said, but all you have to do is wait for South Carolina. Just wait. I got a surprise for you in South Carolina. Okay, he sure did. Because when we were in South Carolina, we were down there during in the weekend leading up to the primary. Many people didn't know Biden's record on busing, for example, or his support of the police. They knew none of that. They just knew he was President Obama's vice president, and that was enough for them. I said, ooh, so you all don't know. Oh, okay.
And one of the things that I heard, and I think that you're absolutely correct with regards to him being, a moderator to the right of Bonnery, quite honestly. I think we've got to give credit to his craftiness and his political ability. Everyone seems to underestimate President Biden for whatever reason. But there was a reason he lasted so long in the Senate. I mean, there was a reason he was so successful in the things that he pursued. So there's got to be an appreciation for his ability to survive and to thrive because he's continuing to show that he can do it. So, certainly I think that appreciation has got to be there. But by the same token, I don't know, if it's going to be, Kamala Harris. I don't know who it is that's going to be able to come about and make the Democratic Party really more progressive in regards to its leadership from President Biden and be able to challenge him in a primary. The interesting part is in the primary, you don't have a lot of challenges coming from the party that's in power. So, I just sort of wonder if it's going to be Biden versus whoever the Republicans decide to put up. And that's sort of the lay of the groundwork that I see right now is that I don't see anybody defeating President Biden or even running against President Biden at this point in time on the Democratic side of the aisle.
Aaron, are you still there? Oh, she might have had to take her son to school this morning, which she has to do. Well, Dwight, your thoughts?
Well, I don't think it matters ultimately who the president is going to be, because there's going to be some realities that the country's going to have to deal with one way or another. One of them is this alliance between Iran and Russia, which is going to flip NATO on its head. Another is where China is going to fit in all of this, and how Taiwan is going to play out. And I mean, there's going to be some external realities. What happens with the environment, where there's water and oil goes. There's going to be some realities that happen with the outside world that's going to require a certain kind of behavior, whoever's in the White House. Again, we have to understand that, or we seem not to understand that this is an imperial democracy, if you want to say, if it sounds inconsistent.
What about an imperial republic?
United States.
I'm just following you, Dwight.
United States is a corporation, and the role of United States is to protect its corporate interest around the world. And the role of the military is to make sure that that's in play. And the role of the voters is just to co-sign on that. They have the option to co-sign. They don't have the right to co-sign. They do have the option to co-sign, because if they don't co-sign, it's going to happen anyway. Nobody voted on Obama killing Gaddafi. That wasn't put to the popular vote. Nobody voted on, in a real sense, Bush bombing every country he could because of American interest. America, in its core, is the military branch of the Western world, of white people, those tribes that come out of Europe, and who is fighting for control of the planet, and who will fight to maintain control of the planet. Whoever we're taking every country they've gone to, everything from Canada to Australia. I was watching yesterday. Me and Janice was watching Avatar, and it's a real demonstration of Western superiority mindset, where they went in and just overthrew a planet because they had the mechanical skills to do that. And that's been the last 500 years of Western history. And I don't expect that to change within the next 100 years.
So, civilizations thrive. Empires don't make it. Where do you see America going? Everybody?
Empires morph into new empires. Empires morph into new empires. They just become realignments of old empires. And so what I see is realignments of the old empire into new empires.
Well, is there anything you want to add, Bryce?
Well, I would just agree with a lot of that. Like the role of America, the role of the American state as it stands now is to serve the interest of corporate America. And like you said, the role of the voters is to co-sign, is to ratify these decisions that have already been made elsewhere. Americans cannot vote against the interests of Raytheon, of Goldman Sachs, of J.P. Morgan, of Northrop Grumman. We cannot vote against the interests of these companies because both sides are completely captured by these entities, by corporate America. And so Americans have really been left to fight about these cultural issues. The Republicans have been directed. They notice that the world's getting worse. They notice that their bank account is getting smaller, but they've been directed to launch their anger at, immigrants, at people of color, at trans people, at minorities, marginalized people, because they don't even have an opportunity to fight back against the corporate power that's really affecting their lives. And until that begins to change, well, you ask, where is America going? It's going nowhere good, right? We are incapable of solving our material problems here. There is no one to say, hey, maybe we should address this problem of Americans being in so much debt all the time. We should address this problem of rent going up and homeownership going down. We should address this problem of all these corporations taking a big chunk out of people's paychecks before they get to spend on the necessities. No one in America, no political figure in America is seriously addressing those issues. Bernie Sanders came close, and for even daring to do that, the establishment crushed him. And this is the Democratic side. This is, the quote-unquote left side of the political spectrum. So if the left side of the political spectrum is incapable of doing it, and the right side is, completely, off the spectrum, well, then what's left? Who's going to be president? He was right. It doesn't matter in a real sense. There is no political figure in America who's going to change the direction, at least one that I've seen. No political figure I've seen who's been talking about the necessary changes that we need to make our civilization survive. And until one figure arises, well, then, not to sound too apocalyptic, but we are doomed. We are doomed to the fate of empires who crumble. And we're not going to live as a civilization who will thrive.
Until someone can rise, but we have to surround them and protect them. That's the key. Because we've had great men and women rise. But if we do not surround them and protect them and ignore the corporate media when they tell us about their personal problems, their money problems, whatever, we're going to continue to get this foolishness that we get. Because I've told everyone that every indictment, every imprisonment, every negative story about you in corporate media, that is part of the game. Because the people who support the corporatocracy are the ones who are protected. They're the ones who have the glorious stories about them all the time. They might get a bad story here or there, hither and yon. But the fact is, this as well as anyone. Dwight McKee, this is your lived experience, and this is your investigative experience, Bryce, that the corporocrats are protected. They're the protected class, Dwight. You lived through what happened with Dr. King.
But every time they arise, they also rise as a lone gunman somewhere in the bushes. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody does rise, a parallel to his rising will be the rising of the proverbial lone gunman who will come and correct that.
And quite honestly, post Dr. King, they don't kill you. Post Dr. King, they don't kill you. What they do is they let you live and they try to make you irrelevant. Which is a soft assassination. They surround you and push you into irrelevance. That's the new way of doing it.
But they don't lose the capacity for a heart assassination.
No,
As
yeah.
Gaddafi,
Well,
as
sadly,
Hussein. I mean, they still have that in their back pocket.
sadly, you ain't running out of space. Just heart attacks, all of that. I think that's probably why we've been so moved by the Kennedy assassination. Because, I didn't realize that when it happened, that Americans didn't believe the official story, Dwight. I was doing some research on it, and Americans from the first day, from the word go, never believed that story. They never believed it. So, I think we got a lot of things that we've got to work through. A lot of things that we have to work through. And I think that continuing to pillory one person is not helping us, everybody. It's not helping us to grow. Looking at Donald Trump, and this is the most horrible. Look, all these folks voted for him. This is a personal fight that they're having with him. They're personally upset with him that you were not able to continue to extend publicly the Bush dynasty. He called Jeb low energy and said, get off this stage. Boom. Ted Cruz, boom. He just, Marco Rubio, little Marco, get at what? He did all of that. It was like, what is he doing? Gutting the party and bringing his people in. That's just what he's doing. And I think we need to understand what's going on, because the growing plurality in America, both of the major parties, Bryce and Dwight, are incredibly unpopular. People they're not feeling either of them. That's why that little pie wedge, that little 28% of independents, of unaffiliated, that number is growing.
But this would only matter. That would only matter if this was a real democracy or a real republic.
Okay.
Again, I go back to it. Really does not matter, because the people's vote is ceremonial anyway. The decisions that are made at a much higher level, and by a small group of people who could really care less what the people think. Who plunders and robs and kills with impunity and immunity. And so the unpopularity of the electoral crowd is coincidental to who's going to run the country. There are people who vote, and then there are people who rule. We vote, they rule. And if you really want an example, is the people's choice was Bernie Sanders. And he was gutted. Elizabeth Warren was gutted. They really were the people's champion. But it really does not matter, because, again, we vote, they rule. Two different propositions.
Bryce, you want to contribute before we go?
No, I mean, that's it. We vote, they rule. And until there's a mass movement, an organized mass movement to influence the electoral process in any significant way, well, that'll continue to be the case. And speaking of the Kennedy assassination, I mean, yeah, have you seen the press conference from Jeff Morley?
I think you sent me that link. Yes. Is that what you're talking of?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we got next week. The Biden administration has the opportunity to release more documents regarding the assassination and regarding CIA surveillance of Lee Harvey Oswald. We'll see if he ends up releasing them, but the deadline is next week.
They, for some reason, they pardoned Abraham Bolden, who they put in prison, put him in jail, because he, is the first Black Secret Service agent at the White House, pushed back on the official narrative and tried to save President Kennedy's life before he was assassinated. He said, these people don't like him. I know they don't like me, but they really don't like him. He's not safe. And the secret pay attention to him. And My mother said that when they killed Kennedy, everything came apart. She said, because all your faith and trust in the government was gone. And then Dr. King said, when they killed Kennedy, he said, I'm not going to make it through the decade. If they will kill him, they're taking me too. And he didn't make it through the decade. Oh, it's just. Dwight, you want to respond?
Oh no, it's and then and this is why I said that we vote their rule, is then they control the narrative for 60, 70, 80 years. Where you can't even get information. The real information is the first assassination is on the truth. Now you're in a position now that you can't even tell the truth without paying a price. Whatever that truth is to you. It don't have to be true. It can be your truth. But if it does not agree with their interest, you can't even tell that. And so, there's a lot of optimism for the country, but I think that optimism is rooted in people's character rather than the reality and what they're looking at. I think some people are just great people and they want things to be better and they just believe and they have faith. And all of that is great. But none of that is what the Bible says. The Bible says that this is just the beginning of sorrow. This is just the beginning of sorrow. This thing is just kicking off and it's only going to get worse. And we need to prepare for that. Those who believe need to prepare for that this thing is only going to get worse. And I hate to sound like the Grinch who stole Christmas.
You are.
But he did. But he did.
You are awful. You are just terrible. Pardon him, Bryce, because he is the Grinch. Oh my gosh, Mr. Grinch. I've been listening to that song. That's Dwight. Excuse me, but you know what? You're right. And I think that if we really understand how this goes and how this runs, Dwight and Robert Patillo, another regular on the show, said that Trump was not going to leave office, and they said it like a year before the election. They said no matter what the results, he's not leaving, and Americans are going to vote for him in overwhelming numbers. And guess what? It's all true. It's all true. It's all true. And it's, like it has been my experience that when you want to shut someone down, you stop calling their name. You stop mentioning them. Corporate media never wanted to shut him down. And it's not just because of ratings, but I think that there's something else going on here. There's something else. What? I don't know, because I'm not that bright. But there is something going on. And I think we would be well advised to open our eyes and see what's going on. I mean, I think there's just, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable. I feel like, wow, there's a lot going on here. You have these people overtaking the chamber of the state house in Michigan. They've done it more than once. I mean, they are getting down up there, and that's happening all over the country. It's just not being reported widely, but it sure is happening. It's happening. It's happening, folks. Let's be honest. White people are not accustomed to being treated this badly. Having no money, the job, money's too tight to mention. Remember that song, Dwight? See, Bryce wouldn't remember that because he's too young. I mean, all that. Yeah. And then not looking at the fact that these races, these races were so super tight. They can. We keep saying, well, but Trump did lose. I'm like, lose what? He put his infrastructure in place, y'all. He did. And that does not make me a Trump lover. You know what? I majored in chemistry in college. Okay. So, and I'm a musician. If you are off, you are off. If you're out of tune, you're out of tune. And every note has a mathematical calibration. Okay. So if you're out of tune, you're out of tune, honey. That's it. The substance weighs what it weighs. If you add a proton, eliminate an electron, you have another element on the periodic table. Each element has a certain number of protons, electrons, and neutrons. When you miss one, you got another element. Or when you have an extra one, you become something else. You got to know that. So I don't, so Dwight, I just can't get that emotional about this thing here. And that's one of the things I can help. I can credit Dwight for, because Dwight is so emotionless about all of it. He thinks we're all crazy. Just so that you know, Bryce.
Good to know. Good to know.
Trust me. He thinks we're all crazy because we're not paying attention to the signs. And I think, he's got a point. Dwight, you were about to say something?
I think Bryce was just something. Bryce, were you about to say something?
Oh, no.
Well, I want you all to.
What I was just going to say is, the Lord said, read the signs of the times. And if you read the signs of the times, you can really see what's coming on. You can see what season we're in. And we're in that season when things are wrapping up, I think that a gauge is the fact that Meghan and her husband left the royal family and came to America. He's an inside track. He has seen some things and knows some things that we couldn't possibly see and know. And if they build out of that, it's a precursor to what it tells you a real story about what's probably really happening that we don't know about.
Yep. And you know what? Since, if you tell me, you got to kill me, keep the information to yourself. Your podcast and your Netflix, that documentary, that's as far as I want to go with you. I'm good. I don't need to know. I just know if Diana, Princess of Wales, couldn't make it out that tunnel, it's a cold, cold game, y'all. It's a cold, cold game. And you better be clear that that's what this is. This is for all the marbles. This is big, 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 big stuff. Big stuff. So, look, I love everybody. It has been great being with you today. And just had two of my favorite, well, several of my favorite people, but I'm closing out with two of my favorite people. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant thinkers, always thinking on another level. I want to thank you, Bryce Green, and want to keep you encouraged because you have so much to offer, so much. And I know that, hey, if I get out of here before you do, the world's in great hands because you think, and you have a heart for the least of these, which makes me feel so good. And Dwight, I want to thank you for all of your advice and guidance down through the years and your historical perspective and sweep. It means so much. Everybody just loves you. So, what? But Yvonne,
Thank
you
you,
said,
Santita.
oh, look,
Appreciate you.
you are. I appreciate you more than you know. More than you know. That's right, Yvonne. Science and music. Well, they call it the 3 M's: math, music, and meds. That's what Stephen Sondheim used to talk about. Because when he went to, I think it was Williams College, he was a pre-med major, as was I. But then he moved into music, as did I. And that's why it's unfortunate when they move music education out of the schools, because it really does sharpen your mathematical skills, because music is nothing but all-roll math. So think about that. When the arts help you to put things together, when you are a physical artist, a sculptor, a painter, when you solve puzzles, when you keep your mind moving and think inside the box and outside the box, that helps you. But what we're doing now is, between giving everybody all these drugs, yeah, I'm saying it, legalizing everything, and dumbing down the schools, They're numbing out Americans so we won't fight back and do anything. Think about that. This rush to legalize drugs to keep you high all the time, so you don't know that you don't have any money. Are you serious right now? You got to know. I tell you where they do not allow them to take marijuana in Chicago, Bryce and Dwight, on LaSalle Street. Mayor Lightfoot said that. Oh, she said, "Oh no, y'all can do wherever you want, but not on LaSalle Street. LaSalle Street is our Wall Street, where the business is, where the money is. That you can't have it over there. Because if you're gonna run things, you cannot be high." My father said, hey, you got to have a sober mind, so you cannot do drugs. You cannot drink liquor. You can't do all that and help guide the world. You can't do it. My father said that. Yeah, and I was a living witness to him not messing with any of that mess. No, he didn't. No. I don't know. He said, "No, baby, you can't do that and do this. I can't be high through all of this. Are you kidding me? Got too much stuff coming at me all the time. No way." So think about that. They are numbing Americans out so you will not have the wherewithal to fight back and secure your rights. Think about that. Think about it. You can't be big and little at the same time, and you can't be sober and high and run the world. You're going to be sober and run this world. They will not allow this cannabis, this reefer, down here on LaSalle Street. They won't have it. Now, I'm not saying that many people in this fancy highfalutin world, I'm not saying that many of them don't indulge, and some of them have problems too. But I tell you what, officially, you can't take it over there. So think about that. Think about what it takes to make it in this world, and you cannot be high. And you cannot be unaware, and you need to fight to get your children and to keep yourself educated, to keep yourselves educated, to stay up on the news. Because somebody is. Because believe me, the decision is made every single day when you look at the corporate news, what they're going to tell you and what they're not going to tell you and how they're going to tell it to you. That's why you need to support fairness and accuracy in reporting, so you can get clear on the game, on what's not being told to you. Think about it. So I love you, everybody. It's just been great being with you today. Oh, Eric, baby, just be careful, okay? You know, I am not, look, I want everybody to live their lives and do what they want to do, but I'm just very, very suspicious when something, when folks start supporting something, when the corporatocracy supports something, it makes me step back and go, what are they trying to do here? That's my thing. I want to know what's the agenda. You need to find out what the agenda is. But I love you, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. And the numbing and dumbing down of America. That's what it is. The numbing and dumbing down of America. And you know who also said that? Bryce and Dwight? Victor Boot.
Who?
The merchant of death. You know he was here in Marion, Illinois in prison. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know he was in Illinois.
I didn't know he was in the middle of America. He said most of his prison mates were black and brown. He said they were not negative about Russia. They were very nice to him. And he said what was interesting about America, he said America is going to hurt itself. He said they are keeping people high. So they will not have the wherewithal to fight back. He said, you won't have to worry about a revolution in America. Oh, this man said that. And he and Brittany Griner greeted each other respectfully on that tarmac as they were participating in that exchange. So, we have to start thinking. Oh, yeah. Think about that. Think about that, Bryce. Think about that. Think about all of that all the time. So, anyone have anything else to say? Yeah. He was in Marion, Illinois. I said he was in Marion, Illinois. They would keep the merchant of death in Marion. Yeah, they did. and Marion. Oh, yeah.
Shalom.
Oh, well, God
Shalom.
bless you. God bless you, everybody. I love all of you. I love all of you. I love you, Eric.
Hello.
I love all of you. I'm
All right,
gonna.
I'll see y'all later.
It's been great.